Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're starting a series covering the game 60 Seconds. Now, one could easily be confused here on the main screen and think that the name of this game is 60 Parsecs, but actually this is an ad for their newer game, which is basically the same game as this, I assume with just space themes. We'll get into that more later. 60 Seconds, the first game in, I guess, the 60 series, as you might call it, came out in 2015, according to at least Giant Bomb's website. I couldn't get Wikipedia's website to find it easily because there's a TV show called 60 Seconds that comes up. This game came out in 2015, though. I wanted to play it for quite a long time. But this is one of those games that on Steam at least has not been particularly ever discounted. In fact, it really hasn't ever been discounted because I have a plugin that tells me what the lowest price this game has ever gone at, and it's been particularly high considering what it is. It's kind of a mobile game that started on a PC game in its feel, at least, and it's asking for quite a premium. I think it's like $15 for something that should have started at $10 and by now should have gotten down to $5 or even less. Should have been discounted at some point down to at least $2.99, and it just hasn't happened. And 60 Parsecs is the same. I don't want to begrudge a small company for setting a price on their product, but it definitely was so high that as somebody who buys roughly 100 games twice a year on Steam and looked at this game every time I was buying something for the past 3 years, so there were 6 opportunities in which I could have bought this game. There were 6 times in which I did not choose to purchase it just because it was so overpriced compared to other games that are of good quality available. I'm gonna try this game on gamepad, but in all honesty, I think I might drop down to mouse. And right now you can see the cursor is set to a sensitivity of 3.5. 4.0, which is the highest setting, is a little too fast. It's a little hard to control this finger cursor with a control pad that way, but the default speed of 1, well, let's just say it's 1. It's hard for my mouse, which is pretty sensitive but easier to control. Look how slow that is. That is just ridiculously slow for a default setting on a controller. And frankly, I don't think controller is going to work too well on this game anyways. By default, this game got the 1080p at the highest possible resolution in full screen, right? It didn't get the audio right, in my opinion. It had everything to the max, and even on my computer where I have to go into the Windows volume control and turn everything down to about 10% because of my recording setup, it was still incredibly loud. And once the music kicks in, you're gonna see where the sound effects and the music have what feels like a very high probability of becoming repetitive very quickly and annoying very quickly. So I've moved it down to about 25% of 10%. So in total, it's at like 7.5% of what it is. You could also skip the intro and disable flashes, which this might be for epileptics. So warning, if you're prone to seizures, you might not want to play this game or watch this video. I guess you need to be extra cautious if you're epileptic watching any videos on YouTube, and that's not a warning you're going to get usually consistently. I have not played this game at all, so if we come over here, we can see all of the statistics in this survival strategy text-based simulator are at 0. And over here we have all of these achievements locked that will Some of these will unlock, but there's, I think, like over 50 of them, so this is not really a game where I think I'm going to get all the achievements unless I actually just fall in love with this and play it like crazy. There is definitely a case here where this is one of those games where you play it at your convenience and you burn yourself out on it. Like, I might play this for one scenario, theoretically, not like it, and never play it again. Or I might play this like I played like the first game I ever played on my channel, Binding of Isaac, where you ran through a run of that roguelike game over and over and over again, and there was like at least 100 runs I recorded, each run being at least an hour long. Let's hop into the game and start playing now. That's enough setup. Okay. So there's 2 gameplay modes. Maybe Classic was the only mode in by default, whereas Challenge, I suspect, is probably like a hardcore mode. So we should start with Classic. And, oh no, seems like, yeah. Ooh, interesting. So, a game like this would certainly work well with challenges. And so I'm seeing some kind of goals that we would have to do in challenge mode. So that gives us more gameplay. Even if I was to really not enjoy this game, I feel like I could probably try to play it on each difficulty once in classic mode and play each challenge once, and that will give us at least a reasonable amount of gameplay. So let's start with the easiest one. Learn all about how to scavenge and survive in the event of a nuclear apocalypse. This is tutorials 100% established, approved by the establishment. Man, I can't read today. So let's begin the adventure. So here's an ad for the company that makes the game, I think. Welcome to your atomic scavenge drill. Pay attention and you might just make it. Am I supposed to press a button to move forward? Hold the grab button to skip my words, but every time you do, the reds will drop an extra nuke. Okay. No time to waste. Get moving. Head to the marked points in front of you. Move to the yellow X. So it doesn't seem like time is moving too much. So I'm running around, crashing into things. This does not feel good job. There might just be hope for you yet. Just keep those legs moving. So we have a controller. One more time. You know the drill. Marker, living room, go. So you don't get any different angles from here. And this is a kind of basic 3D graphics that I don't really think is great. And so your goal will be to grab things like this gun, the soup, your family members, and jump to this that fallout shelter. Now I think it's important to mention that fallout shelters, not bad, but you better be in good shape. There's more where that came from. And so I think this room is, I think this house is randomized each time, and that's kind of why it's simplistic. Fallout shelters were allowed to be built on fears of nuclear war for far too long, in which they would have passed the point where they would have been effective. The truth is, after they had created the 10 megaton nuclear warheads, a fallout shelter really was not going to save you from a direct hit or an indirect hit. And frankly, even with basic one megaton nuclear warheads, for as many as there are, or potential. Good thing you know the layout of your house. I bet the Reds know it too. So we found Timmy. Family comes first. Grab Timmy, and he will be the first in your cozy shelter. So what button is grab? Like, even if you did survive a nuclear war, you're not really... A is grab. That's it. Consider taking other family tombs. I'll leave the exact priorities to you. So, we've got ourselves. We can find the highlighted soup can and grab it too. Alright. You can see there's a lot of soup cans. So we got soup is an excellent choice. This can sustain a family for 4 days. Every American atomic shelter also needs a supply for water. Hunt for some bottles. So even if you were in the shelter and you'd survived an indirect attack, you would have had to stay in that shelter for so long, and it's unlikely that you would have ever a return to normality. You can only carry so much of each item in the slot. You need to drop whatever you've got. Go find the fallout trapdoor and do what? I don't want to jump down there. Oh, you just hit A to drop it. Bingo, you got yourself a small stockpile of food, water in there. No one knows how long you'll be staying down there, so you need a radio. And in the end, every single fallout shelter, everywhere, was not used. So it was just a huge waste of time, money, and resources. Sometimes you've got a few extra seconds before the siren sounds to scout around, but after that goes off. Our incredibly advanced warning system gives you 60 seconds to scavenge what you need and get yourself to safety. Collect at least 5 more items and family members in the next 60 seconds. Make sure you get yourself close to the shelter when time is up. There we go. We have no room. So, take this gun. Take this. Take that. We're trying to grab things that will act as either entertainment or survival potentials. And we've got to hurry. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And some of this stuff. Do we have enough time to grab anything else? Because... Alright, hurry, hurry, hurry. And I lost. Let's try it again. Make sure you get yourself in your supplies, the shelter zone, before the clock goes ring, ring. Alright. Ready, set, go. And this is just really, really slow with the controls. And I can't move right now. And see, I feel like if I was using a mouse and keyboard, this would be way faster. But also, there's a whole point here that you're not supposed to be able to get all of this. Alright, come on. You've got to get that. Grab that. So, some of these people are just fatter than other people. So, as you're playing this, you probably would get a better feeling of what you're trying to grab and what's important. and what isn't. Interesting, the room reset. Well, didn't reset. Might be the better word to say. Let's see, water. Let's not risk it. Let's go. Because we don't need to fail twice in a row. So this is the first 60 seconds of a run through. Now you know how to get to your need. I'll see you downstairs for survival training at ease. So that's the first 60 seconds, and that took... We're 15 minutes into this recording to get to that point. I don't think that's the most helpful loading screens, frankly, because if you were to go with hint loading screens, you could explain some of this stuff a little bit better. So you have the tall mother, the husband you're technically playing as, although I guess you're playing as small, because I think the husband and any of these people could die or disappear. We have the daughter and the skinny son. So what we collected was a flashlight, a radio, a suitcase, I'm not sure what the suitcase is worth, the map of the city, a gun, a checkerboard, 3 cans of soup, 2 cans of water. So immediately we are out of water and we're dead, and we're out of food and we're dead. You would have to assume that this is a shelter where you were only supposed to survive for the briefest of times, like 3 days at most. Well, I guess they said this would be 4 days per can of soup, so that's like 12 days of food. You probably so some of these are probably not to scale. So we can right bump. What does the right bump do? It brings up other interfaces, which we have an A and B button and a right trigger button, or we could just click on this. Now I could see why a controller input would be helpful in this point if you just don't want to use a mouse, but as somebody who prefers to play a lot of games on the controller because he has a bit of arthritis in his hands, because I have a little bit of arthritis in my hands, I like to play controlling games with controller when there's a lot of button presses and hacking and slashing and moving in directions. When it's a slower paced game like this, and you're barely moving the mouse, and you're barely clicking, and when you do need to move the mouse and do need to click, it needs to be precise. I don't really think this game needs controller support. If anything, it would probably be better if it had touchscreen support and was on a cell phone game, which eventually was ported to cell phone games. Alright, it says, you made it to the shelter, congratulations, but the drill's not over yet. You'll end up here with whatever or whoever you brought with you, nothing else. You'll need to make the most of it. Now, this is ridiculous because if you were going to spend the effort, time, expense, money to build a fallout shelter, you would have had it well stocked, and you would have kept it well maintained. If you're going to buy into the paranoia that was being peddled during the Cold War and the beginning of the nuclear age, you would have planned. You would have had an extra radio and an extra flashlight and full shelves of food and full shelves of water. Particularly water. Water does not go bad. So you could have easily had distilled or purified water for lining up everything. Of course, you still need to find a way to get rid of trash and like sewage, and I'm not sure how any shelter ever planned for that to happen. You would have to have a cistern or something drilled below it. You made it to the shelter, congratulations, but the drill's not over yet. You'll end up here with with whatever or whoever you brought with you, nothing else. You'll need to make the most of it. The next few days will teach you how to survive down here while the world outside burns. Explore and interact with your surroundings. You can always find out useful things about your shelter and the inhabitants when your survival journal is not open yet or hidden. So it says right trigger will move the page forward. Day 1, so the day 1 continued. First things first, we must ration food and water. If you don't wine and dine yourself and the folks you brought with you, you can bet the bottom dollar none of you will ever see the light of day. As long as you have food and water available, rationing it out to a given person by selecting a picture of a can or bottle under their portrait, or instantly ration out both by clicking on the character's image. Of course, you might save your supplies for later, but a normal person can only survive 4 days without water. As to 4 days without water is asking a lot, certainly. As to food, the longer you deny your people rations, the weaker they will get and might eventually get sick. Even if you manage to cure them, it will take quite a few cans and a lot of time to replenish their strength. So you want to try and maintain their strength, not regain it. I assume left bump. Ooh, I did not think it worked that way. Interesting. That seems odd that you would move your book out of the way like that, but you know, there's probably a lot of games where that would be very helpful. Time to ration supplies. So it seems like what we could have done is, and this is all just D-pad stuff, and X and B to do this. Yeah, it seems what you could have done easily here is had the controller instead of the D-pad. It seems so odd that it would change the interface like this. It seems also odd that the interfaces just seem to pop up at random to tell you what to do. So soup, I assume, has salt in it, which dehydrates you. So if you can't think, oh, if I just give people soup, they will also be hydrated. Let's see. But I also have only 4 soups, so we're dead. Like we are totally dead. So, and one is to not assume the obvious here, that the fat daughter is potentially going to want to eat more food than the skinny son, or the fat man is going to potentially want to eat more food than the skinny wife. So let's just do everybody. Actually, I'm just going to press up on everything and then down on everything. And apparently our water bottles, 1 water bottle feeds an entire family, and 1 soup can. So if I had gotten an equilateral amount, an equal amount of soup and water, that would have been right. Okay, that seems wrong to me. Regardless of how large a soup can would actually be, you need more water than that. So I'm just going to feed everybody and hope that in this tutorial situation we get to a point where we can recover our water and food. Yeah, if you were to build a shelter today, you need a source of a deep well, isolated aquifer well type location, something that you kind of know the groundwater does not seep into, so something really deep that pours out fresh water that you don't have to put too many chemicals in or treat to drink. Let's see. Since this is your first day down here, you'll need to get used to your surroundings. Believe me, ventilation hum can drive anyone nuts if you don't occupy yourself with something to do. Get some decent rest and we'll carry out tomorrow. Nighty night. And so, seems like that's all we're gonna do today. And this is the meat of the game, and this is where you could pretty quickly just rage quit on the game. It's like, you're going to just do this over and over again. And I can already tell I'm not going to use a controller, so I'm going to just put that down and use the mouse, which is more reasonable. Now, I'm going to click on the checkers. It doesn't seem like that does anything, though. Like, it seems like these are at best interactive toys. I don't think the clothes ever change, so I don't know what the suitcase really is for. But if you were going to bring down a suitcase, one would hope it would be full of something useful. But it kind of doesn't seem like it was. Like, had you put a radio, a flashlight, the checkerboard, the map, and some water and soup all in one suitcase, which seems like a reasonable amount of stuff you'd have in one suitcase, and then you grab the suitcase, it'd be heavy, but it'd be full of things that are useful. Good morning, survivalist. Hope you slept well. Bed's comfy enough? No, well, better get used to it since you'll be staying here for a while. And I'm not sure that there actually is an end of game mechanic here so much. Like, maybe if you survive 100 days, that's game over and you've won. Maybe the number of days you need to survive are randomized. I wouldn't be surprised if you play it on the hardest difficulty, it goes on forever, but on easier difficulties there are a set number of days that you need to survive. Because this is clearly a system where resources are just going to get used up incredibly fast, and you're never going to be able to replenish them as fast as they get used. Even if you are doing a large amount of rationing. And honestly, you probably could do a decent solo run easily, and I'm kind of surprised the tutorial didn't start this way, where the guy was just himself and himself alone, no family members at all, because that would have made the use of the food and the water way easier. We'll start today's activities with rationing since you need to do it every day, but after that we'll move on to something else. Got your attention? Good. Now listen, there's a risk you'll run out of supplies eventually. Everything can be useful, but food and water are critical. And I can't really click it. I'm gonna have to figure out how to, like, interesting. Even though the mouse works, I'm still in controller mode, and so I have to still use the controller to move the page forward. The interface here is clearly problematic. To your survival, if they're gone, food and water are important to your survival. That was a weird place to turn the page. You'll be gone sooner than you can say corn dog. So sometimes you need to send people to the surface to bring back more food, more supplies. Again, if this was not a direct hit and it was a 1 megaton or less nuclear warhead, sure, maybe then you could, in a radiation suit, go to the surface and search for supplies. But this really is falling into the world of fantasy of like a Fallout game than what the real situation would be, where polar ice caps potentially would melt, we'd have years of nuclear winter, and possibly all life on the planet would die if we went to a full nuclear war these days. Excuse me, I had to drink some water. There's too much reading going on here. And people know that, and that's probably why we never were at a very high chance of actually going to nuclear war. You do this by preparing an expedition a day before it actually departs. Be careful though. Tired survivals can never be part of an expedition. Today we'll skip preparations and jump directly into sending someone brave outside. Okay. Again, let's see. So we could potentially send like Mary Jane. We could send her out in the thought that she would use less food or less water, but we've seen her rationing. It seems like regardless of body shape and just general physical appearance, everybody is equal here, both adult and child. Nobody's taking more water, nobody's taking more food. Maybe in the underlying coding, some of them are more likely to get sick than others. I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen games like this before where that is the case. So Mary Jane, I assume, is the daughter. It is totally fine. Hopefully it will stay that way. Timmy might not look like it, but he's a strong young boy. He's doing just fine. Dolores is fine and well, as much as anyone can be fine as well in this tiny shelter. There's nothing going on with Ted, nothing new anyway. That almost implies that there's something nefarious or hidden. Let's see. So this is Dolores, this is Ted, this is Mary Jane, this is Timmy. And I cannot bring back that part. Interesting. So clearly next game I need to change the settings. So like now on this interface in particular, the mouse cursor is totally gone. So I'm just gonna do a day of food for everybody and skip the water and hope we can balance this out. Sending people out into the wasteland is no walk in the park. To do it too early or without a gas mask, and you can bet it's a suicide mission for them. Send healthy, well-fed people. Sick, hurt, or crazed people are more likely to perish out there. You can send one person at a time. Oh, I was going to say send all four, because you never split up in an emergency. You can... Let's give it a try. This time you'll need to send someone out, but if you ever want to skip a trip to the surface, don't select anyone. And again, the mouse cursor is gone. So, who's more important in a emergency then? I think what you do is you send the father out. Let's go through my logic here. Females, just talking in general terms, can potentially have children, and if you were going to repopulate a severely devastated society, that would be majorly necessary. However, the mother is probably close to or past the point where she could successfully survive long enough to have a child, or have a child that would survive long enough to potentially be part of the next generation. That being said, so using those two ideas, the order in my mind would be send the father, then send the mother, and then leave the two kids. Which potentially is a dangerous scenario because knowledge is also going to be a problem. You can't really have a society if all the adults sacrifice themselves and there's literally nobody who can establish, maintain any kind of order or treat any kind of illness or injury or educate people to any level of intelligence. Uh, so theoretically, you would want some adults around, but that's a bigger calculation. When you're down to 4 people, I think it goes father, mother, son, daughter. Like, we're putting all of our hopes in Mary Jane. If she's the only one that survives, she can carry on the society more than the son could, and more than the parents could. Right, so what are the buttons? We can go back. Let's see. Alright, no, it's the right bump that shows the buttons. So A and go. There might be other arguments, certainly. Now, I don't get how he went without, or why he went without the gun, the map, or anything like that. I imagine you might get something on the radio that says we're supposed to meet up at a certain place to be rescued, and we would need the map to know where that place is. Although, in all likelihood, that would be meet up at City Hall, or in some other way put an indicator on your house that you're alive and well, so people could come rescue you. That's what happens when there are floods in the United States, is that you're on your roof waving flags and asking for helicopter rescues. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't take the gun. For protection, or for potential hunting, too. Like, animals might be running wild there. And they skipped a convenient, inconvenient truth here. There's no pet here. No cat, no dog, nothing that you would end up either having to feed or eat yourself. This is a drill, so your explorer will come back after a little while, but in the event of a real apocalypse, they might be gone for a couple of days. In the meantime, you'll be faced with other problems that'll test the limits. I'm talking about making decisions that can break even the best of men's moral spine. We'll see what clay you're made of, but first, ration your food and water. We don't want anyone to starve now, do we? Mary Jane isn't worried, or at least she's not saying so out loud. Interesting the way this is getting broken up. Like, they seem like they programmed this to not even have hard page breaks. Despite the dire circumstances all in trouble we're going through, Timmy is being very brave. Dolores is doing quite well, but she can't find anything to complain about. Today, Ted left for the surface. We'll hope he'll be back soon. So if Ted gets radiation poisoning, it's a problem, certainly. But we weren't really planning on him having children, or moving on to the next society. And see, that's where I'd look at this as who can ensure that society and this family can survive 100 years from now, 90 years, 80 years, 70 years, 60 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. And age is going to play a big role in that. But these are very generic considerations also that I've thought about before. In reality, you start getting into nuanced scenarios. Let's go ahead and just run the food out at this point. Like, we could run the food out, or we could not, but I'm just gonna go with it. And see, this is a great example of where if the father left, maybe the mother would be more generous with the food than she should be. Or if the parents both left, maybe the kids would be more generous with the food and the water rationing. People would not be on the same page at all. That's why, that's another great reason why you might be better off just getting blown up in a nuclear attack than actually surviving in a shelter, because it's going to bring out the worst in people. An army of men. I'm an army man, so I don't know a second thing about imagination, but you could probably use yours now. Picture this scenario you come across as your kids. Picture this scenario. You come across your kid's hamster. Interesting, I was just talking about that. Who in some bizarre way found its way to the shelter. Now the kids are obviously going to love it, and so will you. There's nothing better than food that comes to you when it's on the own. Now it's up. Do you cook them? Well, not immediately. And frankly, a hamster's not going to have much meat on the bones anyways. But let's see. What I would do, and this is where a game like this is going to fall apart, is I would say on the next expedition you're going to take the hamster to the surface and let it go. If it's been past an initial 3 days of radiation, it's going to get the best chance it gets. A small hamster getting cooked and eaten is nothing. It's like trying to eat a squirrel or something. Maybe that's the best you can do. Maybe that is what expeditions would turn down into, is just making a bunch of snares and traps trying to catch small animals. But meat from wild animals is difficult to prepare, takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, difficult to hunt. Pre-prepared food is way easier. And this would ruin morale so early in the game. Like, if people were miserable and starving and everybody was on the same page at that point, it would be a different decision. But now I'm just going to say no. Then you move forward. Now, I have no idea if there's a karma system here at all, so I don't know if you're rewarded for doing something good or not. And we have an open soup of can on the table. Open can of soup. Man, I cannot talk today. Which I assume that means because we had part of the soup left open. Let's not give any food or water going forward until they say they're hungry or thirsty. Good choice. The little furry guy can stay and fatten up. It'll make a bigger meal in a few days. Or maybe your only source of food if you run out of cans. Mary Jane is very thirsty and has to drink something. Timmy doesn't need much, but he should drink. There has to be some water left. Dolores should get it. Alright. So, that's it for the water. And they're not hungry, so we'll just do... Well, we were going to run out the food here and just finish this up. I was going to do 30-minute episodes, but we're already at the 45-minute mark almost. So this is going to be more of a game of runs, where we're not going to break up runs until it gets at least to maybe an hour mark, because this is really slow. Alright. You might be faced with decisions that require you to use your equipment. However, sometimes you might find you don't have the one that was supposed to save today. Make sure you scavenge the right supplies before the blast. Keep in mind, every item can be used for something. What do you want to do today? Clean the rifle, listen to the radio, or play major, or maybe play Shadow Bunnies using the flashlight. Is that what you're gonna do with the flashlight? Alright. Well, first of all, it's unrealistic that a clean rifle, if it was cleaned, wouldn't put up is dirty now. It's unrealistic that if you cleaned a rifle, put it on a wall, and then left it there for 30 years, it would be particularly dirty later. You might want to clean it before use then, but the idea that 4 days in you're going to need to clean it is ridiculous. Wasting the batteries with the flashlight is a ridiculous thought. Listening to the radio, though, both works if there's actually some entertainment on it and if there's actually some news or information on it. So I would say listen to the radio. Remember, this is set in an era where radio was as big, if not bigger, than TV. So that would make a lot of sense. Of course, you are probably wasting batteries on the radio too, so I don't know if these batteries are magical batteries that will just go on forever, or if these are batteries that these are like hand cranked devices that don't use batteries. Same way that, I guess, for the rifle, we didn't pick up any bullets, so I assume we have an infinite supply on those. Day 5, and look at our guy. He is hungry, hurt, and tired, but he seemed to have brought back a water and a healing first aid kit. So that's not a terrible outcome. But even on this tutorial, I don't see how we're making it to 2 weeks. The radio is critical to establishing communications with the U.S. Army, as well as for listening out for any trouble that might be headed your way. If you're lucky, maybe you'll catch some music too. Good news, everyone, the expedition is back. Sometimes they return with extra supplies, sometimes they won't. Other times they come back with a nasty injury or even radiation sickness. Believe me, you don't want to get those. I hear glowing in the dark isn't as fun as it sounds. This time, your explorer was hurt, but they will recover after the proper use of a first aid kit. You can use one during rationing. Ted has safely returned from his voyage to the surface. We came across a local church at the end of the road, which theoretically he would have known about a local church at the end of his own road. Most of it was destroyed, but the priest quarters survived the blast. A group of people survived there and started a cult. They believed that everything that had been happening is a game tailored for someone's amusement. How crazy is that? That's breaking the fourth wall there. Those nice people gave us some canned soup. They say they don't like the taste of it. Now we're certain they're nut jobs. Cultivists decided they won't be needing any holy water. We did a bit of a miracle work and turned empty wine bottles into quite full water bottles. So we got 2 water bottles. Mary Jane didn't cause any trouble today, and no trouble dared to cross her path. Nothing new to report on Timmy. Dolores is fine and well, as much as anyone can be fine and well in this tiny shelter. Ted is hungry. Ted was hurt. Ted is really tired. Alright. So, we have to hit Y on Ted, and then, well, let's actually turn that off and just hit A. Alright, so A does not do the healing. Okay. And it seems like we want to push this further, so I'm just gonna not feed anybody. See, I'm in a weird position now because I kind of want to end this tutorial and in next recording play the game for real, but it kind of feels like this tutorial is just going to go on forever. So let's just play legitimately and not rush towards the end. So I'm gonna just give Ted food and water. You need at least 1 alive adult to keep going, If you send your... Okay, so that changes my calculation immediately. If you send your only survivor to the surface, you won't know what's happening in your bunker until they come back. So you're only playing as the adults. And when they do, your shelter might already belong to someone else. A decent padlock may protect it, but not for long. This was a busy day. Take your time and get some sleep. If you made it this far, you're doing great and have a chance of getting out of this foxhole. Hopefully soon, but don't quote me on that. So now when the screen comes back, I bet the first aid kit is gone. Well, it's not gone. It's empty. But you do get to that bit. And there's apparently something now drawn on the wall. And here we have a can of soup. So as time goes on, it seems like things just randomly adapt and change. So you get a little bit of variety here. But this is a pretty basic game, certainly. The animation is not changing much. You just have these stationary characters just blinking and looking. Alright, we've only just sent someone outside, but let's give it another go today, shall we? First time you were only asked to pick one brave volunteer to save the day. This time you also get a chance to equip your explorer with some useful gear. Feed your troops, and I'll see you at the shelter engines. It's impressive how well Mary Jane is handling this situation. She looks fine today. Nothing to report on Timothy. Everything seems okay with Dolores. Ted's stomach is rumbling. Ted's injuries are all fixed. Alright. So, again, Ted needs food. And frankly, we just feed everybody at this point and use one can. Alright. And I guess we're fine to skip water. I don't think we gave anybody water yesterday either, though. I think an alternating pattern of water and feeding is probably, or every other day rationing. Alright. Anything can be useful outside. Some items might even improve a scavenger's chance of survival. Notice you have a suitcase, that's handy. With a suitcase that your explorer can carry more, go ahead, pick something. So, what to take outside? Who should go outside? We're gonna send, I guess, the mother. Or, you know what? Is there an increased danger of sending the kids out? We should try that. We should send Timmy out. Let's see. Timmy can only hold one thing. Mary Jane can only hold one thing. Let's see. Dolores can only hold one thing. Alright. So it seems like only one thing is an option. Okay, so suitcase is incredibly important. I'm trying to select Dolores, and it's not working. Alright, let's select him. Seems like the animation is just wrong on Dolores. So if you take the suitcase though, then I guess what this comes down to is a matter of how many other items do you want to carry with you? Like, because do you have to carry more things to, like, if you have nothing in your hand and you take the gun, the map, and the flashlight in the suitcase, will that let you bring back more food and water, or do you have really an infinite amount of stuff you can take with you, bring back? Like, that's the question. So should you really take the suitcase and just the gun, leave the map and the flashlight? I imagine if you're scavenging and you're trying to move fast, you're probably not sleeping, so in the middle of the night looking for more resources to scavenge, flashlight would be helpful. So let's take them all 4, and we'll see if Timmy can do anything more. And you can see he has taken everything that we told him to take. There's an outlet back here, but I don't think that would really mean anything. Question certainly about the electricity too. Again, if a nuclear fallout happened, the power grid is probably going to be in a horrible mess, and so you would need your own generator. You would need a generator that then ran off of some kind of fuel. It's not going to be a solar cell run thing, and it wouldn't be a nuclear generator or anything like that that's complicated. So it's going to be something like a propane generator, which means you need a vent and you need a huge tank of propane, which always strikes me that if you were going to build a real shelter, it would have to be huge and hugely stocked and cost way more than is reasonable for anybody to spend. Excuse me, had to drink more water. Myself. Morning people, you're probably asking yourself one simple question. What's the point of sitting in an atomic shelter? Why don't I just leave? Well, leaving is a death sentence. If the radiation sickness doesn't kill you, the giant scorpions will. You can trust me on that. Your one chance is our boys arriving to rescue you. So every good citizen needs to do one thing: seek contact with the US military and await rescue. Mary Jane says she's doing fine and doesn't need anything. Timmy went out to the wasteland. We don't know what we'll do if he doesn't come back with this equipment. Today's been fine for Dolores thus far. Ted's stomach is rumbling. So Ted needs more food now. Like, there's a considerable amount of food that Ted is requiring for that expedition, to the point where his resources that he brought back are not better than if we had just not gone. Like, that it's neutral at best. No, the rescue didn't come today, but we'll come get you eventually. You need to keep your radio operational and be ready to venture into the wastes. However, you also need to be careful. It might not be only our soldiers out there. There could be bandits or worse, commies. Just imagine what would happen if the Reds discover you. So let's agree on rules for this drill. You only open the door if someone knocks 2 times. Am I clear? 2 knocks. Alright. So Timmy came back. He broke the flashlight, it seems, and came back with 2 bottles of water. And let's see, it doesn't look like he took any damage. So perhaps it is better to send Timmy out for, but I mean, he broke something. You'll need to remember that some days will be very intense. A lot of things will happen and you'll need to be prepared for. That's why any day that gives you a break is a blessing, and you'll need to make sure to make the most of it. Eat, drink, and relax while thinking about all those commies who don't have comfy bunkers like you. That thought always gets me through the day. We were so afraid for Timmy, but he came back from the wasteland and is safe with us now. We never liked the people who boarded long-distance buses with baggage full of food, especially the kind that smelled bad. But in our current situation, we will be more happy to find suitcases filled with canned soup, or even some smelly cheeses. Ransacking through backpacks turned out to be quite profitable. A lot of people had a weird fixation on carrying soup cans with them. Lucky for us, they always picked up our favorite flavor, tomato. So we got 1 can of soup. Our local athletics team. So we're gonna get these long lines of dialogue apparently for every time we get a response. And I don't know if this is randomized or if this is going to be a case where we only get these outcomes like once, and then it cycles through all the different responses. I would kind of prefer that it cycles so we don't end up seeing these responses over and over again for potential improvements. I could see playing this as a card game, like a deck building game, card game where you have different responses, or like in Monopoly where you pick up a chance card and it tells you what happens. But I think we'll pretty quickly stop reading a lot of this too, because this is really turning into something like a Western attempt at a somewhat randomized visual novel. Although I guess it really doesn't fall into the category of a visual novel because it's not really telling a novel-like story, more of a randomized collection of statements. Our local athletics teams was preparing to depart for a championship today, taking place somewhere in the boondocks. Why would a championship take place in the boondocks? Their bus was full of refreshing water and spare shoes. Unfortunately, none of them were a match for us, so we just took all the water bottles. That's an interesting thought, like trying to know what the clothing size of your other family members, particularly as a child, would be something you might not even think about. It's like, oh yeah, I need to get these shoes or this type of clothes. Curses, our flashlight is out of service after the expedition. Mary Jane is feeling safe. Who wouldn't in this coffin-sized shelter? No news is good news. There's nothing going on with Timmy. Today was relatively calm for Dolores. Ted says there's no need to worry about him. He's okay. So that means we can now ration this and just not feed anybody or give anybody water. As long as you keep your shelter stocked and remain cautious, you should be okay. However, every choice you make comes back to bite you in the butt. Even after a few days or weeks, consider your options carefully. This is a drill, but if the nukes start dropping, it'll be a totally different story. I wonder if this is going to be the end of the tutorial here. And we can't send people out at the on the same day that somebody comes back in. I'm also feeling like there's really not a point here where there could be too much more. There's clearly something that hangs here. Clearly something that hangs here. We'd want another first aid kit. We'd love a stocked food and water shelf. There's probably something down here. Probably something down here. There could be something on top of the shelf. There could be something up here. There's clearly supposed to be a couple of other things over in this area. But that's kind of it. And I guess this is also the point. And that's a kind of unsatisfactory pause menu, because I wanted to go back to the exit to the menu, but I don't know if I'd be able to continue. Interesting. And I'm not willing to risk it because it has taken an hour to get to this point. I think it's also pretty obvious that the sound effects are very minimal. We've heard the fly fluttering more than anything else, and we've heard the music trying to do its job and be subtle and not get too annoying, but it was way too loud to start off with by the default settings, but it's also a little too obvious in its notes and its tempo, so it will probably get annoying pretty fast. This is where I want to end this recording. We're going to have to just continue to move forward. It's better to see if this tutorial has an end point instead of just forcing it. Like, I could have spent all the water and food and watched ourselves starve to death, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is some kind of achievement also for having the tutorial go as far as we can possibly go. So far I don't feel like I've made any major mistakes, but getting down to the point where we can really figure out how often we need to ration and what the percentages are there and what the chances are there is something that will take experience, or you could probably use a walkthrough. I bet somebody's calculated everything you need to do and the best standard average way to play this game. Unlike something like FTL, where FTL was so random and so different every time, it didn't really feel like there was ways you could succeed most of the time. In fact, I think I played over 100 games of FTL and barely won 5 of them all the way to the end for how brutal the final boss is. I'm not sure there is a final boss in this game or anything like that. It's just time and resource management. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I end all my recordings the same way. I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that tells YouTube that my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell to get notifications. If you want a friend to follow me on any other social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon. Or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Had somebody gifted me this game when it first came out, within the first year of it coming out, since this is now a 4-year-old game, I would have played this a lot earlier. Again, price was a major factor in playing this game. That's it for this recording. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.